Welcome to Headlines and Headaches. I'm Mike Perry. My co-host, Larry Johnson, is doing his civic duty. He is helping at the Lions event someplace. I think I know he can't cook, so I'm pretty sure they got him washing dishes or something like that. In the background, you can hear my good friend Cody Meyer, Frog Z, Mr. Beatmaster. He always helps us kick things off. He also does a little cooking with me at the country club, so I always like to start a little bit with his music to help us get into the mood. And speaking of the mood, I have a good friend of mine who, man, we just hooked up. I kind of lost track of each other than the fact we'd see each other on Facebook or some of the social media. But my good friend Michael Libbie, he lives in way down south in that wonderful, warm, comfortable state of Iowa, right?
Yeah, well, today it's I think high temperature around here is going to be 57 maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm waiting to do outside work until Tuesday when it becomes 79.
Right.
So
Well, we're about the same. I think the high today is going to be around 48 degrees. We had a little sleet and snow this morning, and I was going to work outside in the shed, but I have no heat in the shed. So I think
yeah,
I'll work in the garage where I do have a heater going.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Michael Libbie. Wow. We go back, folks, I'm going to tell you, we go back to the 80s. And
Yeah.
when I met Michael, and I was running a flame-throwing 100,000 watt FM in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Were you at Friendship Haven at that time?
I was, yeah. I had been on a flame throwing 100,000 watt station with a 600-foot stick,
Right.
KKEZ,
Mm-hmm.
for about 8 or 10 years, and then transitioned to Friendship Haven, where it was the largest continuing care retirement community in the state of Iowa, related by faith to the Methodist Church, and we had 610 residents and 400 employees, and I went to work there first as their director of development, responsible for raising money for the nonprofit, and then after 2 years of doing that, I went back to school and passed my administration license, and they made me the president and CEO of Friendship Haven. Not bad for a Jewish guy
Right.
working for a Methodist group. But yeah, you were doing Come Alive at 5.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen.
Eh, It was first downtown Fort Dodge.
Yeah, in the Trolley Center.
Rock and Roll Reunion?
Wasn't it? In the
Oh,
Trolley Center?
I can't remember the name.
Yeah, I
But
think that's what it was called, yeah.
it was the biggest party in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Population at the time, probably, I don't know, 40,000, 35,000. And the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, all the teachers came out.
Right. Yeah.
It was wild. Wow.
It really was. I mean, we'd packed the place. I mean, we
Oh, yeah.
had lines a block long waiting to get in to have some fun. 5 to 7. And you remember for the first hour what we had free?
No.
Pabst Blue Ribbon beer.
Oh.
Courtesy of Steve and company. But and then we had free Domino's pizza for the first time,
Right.
or until dawn. I mean, I couldn't have.
Yeah. And then, so it was downtown, and then you moved it to the Starlight Village.
No, we went to the Larimar Ballroom. Well, wait, no. Did we go to the
Yeah.
Starlight and then the Larimar? Yeah,
I don't know. I think I had moved
yeah.
to Des Moines in the meantime,
Yeah,
and
we went out to the Starlight, Best Western Starlight Lounge, and we did Come Alive at 5 there for a bit, and then we started Comedy Night. Do you remember that? We had Comedy Night on Friday night. But then we moved the old 55 Chevy front end studio to the Larimar Ballroom where we did Come Alive at 5 and then we went out. And we did for a while Comedy Night at the ballroom. And I'll never forget we had to build a brick wall.
oh yeah,
But
yeah,
that was out of plywood. and we set that up every week for comedy night. Yeah, that was a good time. So we're here to
That's
talk
been
about, there's so many headlines and going on around the world and locally, and I guess I want to talk first before we get into some headlines. I want to talk first about your Jewish connection because it's really interesting how involved you have become and the travel now that you do to Mason City, Iowa. So talk to us a little bit about that.
well. I've been the rabbi or spiritual leader for 40 years. First in Fort Dodge at Bethel, and then at Das Israel in Mason City. And Mason City is roughly 2 hours and 15 minutes north of Des Moines. And in between all that time, I was president of the Orthodox synagogue here in Des Moines. And it's just been this transformation, if you will. I've been through all the chairs. There are roughly three groups of Jews: Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. And I've been through all three chairs.
Okay.
And so the congregation in Mason City, small, but it's been around since 1908, I believe it was. And so we've got 12, 13 families. But I go up once a month on Friday, do services Friday night, and then I do a 2.5 hour Torah study on Saturday, which is Shabbat. And all these different types of people come. I mean, there's evangelicals and mainstream Protestants and the Catholic priest and the former mayor of the city of Mason City who happens to be Catholic, and then even a couple of Jews show up. And so it's this what does the Torah portion of the week say to our life today? And it's a freewheeling conversation with all these people, and it's a learning experience.
Sure.
So that's been fun to do. It's called a midrash, and yeah.
Tell me, you said you've been part of three, what was it, Orthodox?
Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox.
Okay, so obviously there's some political aspects to that.
Well, there is and there isn't.
Tell us the
the ori-
difference. Tell us the
yeah,
difference.
sure. The original Jewish faith was rooted in Orthodoxy. That's like there's 613 commandments, and we attempt to follow as many as what we possibly can. And there's something you probably didn't know either. Every time God says do something or don't do something, it's not a suggestion, it's a commandment. So,
Sure.
so 613 times that happens in the Torah, in the first 5 books of the Bible. Anyway, Orthodoxy was the original. And then folks in Germany, interestingly enough, they didn't really, they wanted to assimilate more into the German culture. So they created an offshoot called Reform Judaism. And Reform Judaism took a lot of the trappings from their Christian friends. They call their synagogues a temple rather than a synagogue or a shul. The rabbis did wear at one time more traditional ministerial garb. There was most of their service was in English, and so that was Reform, and Orthodox was still there. And then about 15, 20 years later, some people got worried and said, hey, we're drifting too far to the left, too far to the liberal side of our faith. Let's create something that takes a little bit of Orthodoxy and a little bit of Reform, and they called it Conservative Judaism. So that kind of is in the middle. And you would imagine that services are English and Hebrew, but they do keep kosher. So it's just a difference between how people practice their faith, and whether or not you have a kosher home, you eat kosher, you keep your dishes separate, milk and meat, because 3 times in the Torah it says you should not boil a kid in its mother's milk, So it's taken that you can't have a pepperoni pizza,
Right.
in other words, or a cheeseburger. So yeah, it's people. I've been doing this a long time, and I just met a woman the other day. There's an organization I belong to, Iowans Supporting Israel, and I sat at a table, and a woman next to me said, "Rabbi, I don't know if you know this, but I'm converting to become Jewish." And I said, "Kathy, you don't need to do that. I mean, you're okay where you're at." She said, "No, I've always felt this," and she was probably in her late 60s, and she said, "No, that's what I want to do, and I've been taking classes and studying, and I go now to the Reform Temple, and that's where I'm going to convert at." I said, "Well, you don't have to." And she said, "Do people ask you about conversion?" I said, "Oh yeah, all the time." And their old standard is that the rabbi is supposed to say no at least 3 times.
Right.
And if they come back and say, "No, really got this desire to do this," and then you explain to them it's a process. You just don't wave the magic wand and you become Jewish. There's a process to all this,
Right.
and sometimes, depending on where you're going, it'll take maybe a year or two. So, yeah, that's what I do. That's one of my jobs.
Right. Okay. I just, when folks heard that I started this so-called political broadcast, I had to explain to them it's not all about what we see on the Congress level. I mean, there's political things that happen in your home, in your business, in your religion, throughout your
Absolutely.
entire life. So it's something that affects us wherever we go, political.
Yeah.
And it sounds,
Yeah.
in your description, Michael, it sounds like what happened with Christianity and that, where churches started moving one way or the other because they didn't like the direction this one group was going, so they decided to start another group.
Yeah, there's some of that, and even within some of those congregations. I taught for several years a class on comparative religion. And one of the curious things is even among some of the sects of Christianity, I take, for example, Lutherans, they have split off because of issues with same-sex marriages. And one group says no, the other group says yes, and then they split. And we're seeing some of that in the Methodist Church as well. Yeah, so what happens on the outside of the world? The bottom line, the bottom line is this: we're all commanded to love one another, and I mean it says so in the Christian scriptures. It says so in the Jewish scriptures, and we find it difficult sometimes. That's too bad, but there are schisms everywhere. As you know, I also do a daily business newscast. It's called Insight on Business, and I don't do politics because everybody else is doing politics, and I just stick to business. But at the same time, every single day, there is an issue in politics that impacts business, and so we report on it without too much bias, anyway. For example, Friday. This past Friday, on the whatever that was, 16th, 17th, yeah, I think
Somewhere around there.
17th, stock market, Wall Street, just surged. At one point, the Dow was up by over 1,100 points, and it was all based on the political decision that there was going to be an opening of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Oil prices sank by over $7.50. The Dow was up, the Nasdaq was up, the S&P 500 all hit new records. Well, then guess what? Yesterday, Iran said, "Oh, wait a minute, time out. We're going to close the Strait of Hormuz." And so I predict that tomorrow, when the stock market opens, it's going to open way down, and oil prices are going to shoot back up again.
Why not?
So,
You know, it brings up a point because um, how do you in your we had Pastor Mike on here 3, 4, 5 shows ago with one of the local real life ministries here in town, and I asked him in a position that you're in, and of course you once a month go up and do your thing, but in the position you're in, how do you explain? How do you discuss when somebody comes up to you and says, you know, with everything that's happening in the world, you know, what should I do? I mean, does one give advice? Like you go back into the 1800s, you know, 250 years ago. I'm putting together a sermon. I've been asked to do a veteran sermon in a small town in southern Minnesota, Emmons, Minnesota, here coming up in June, based on the 250 years. And so I went back and I started looking at the 1800s and looking at how the preacher, the minister, the rabbi, all these folks, how they were really politically ingrained in some of their sermons. Some of the sermons were just really against this, and of course we go back to British and the split from the British and that, and I'm amazed at how sermons back then were politically motivated, but now I look at today, I don't see that. Is there a reason, or have we pulled away from giving advice politically from the pulpit?
I don't think so. You know, there was recently a decision, I think it was Supreme Court, said that pastors can now pontificate from the lectern on political issues. Before they were, it was suggested they didn't because they could lose their 401, their tax exempt status, but now they can. So we have for example, we have a church, a large mega church here in the Des Moines metro, whose minister will often, on a regular basis, take up very conservative platform issues. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we have a very well-known church in downtown Des Moines that is very liberal. So, you know, I don't know, it just, I try not to do that. We have members of our congregation that are all across the fence.
Sure.
Extremely liberal, extremely conservative. And I just tell them, I said, you know, we're not going there. We're just not going there.
We're going to preach about love. Love one another.
We're going to talk about what does the Torah tell us to do. You know, I'd much rather have you stop working on Saturday than I would have a conversation about politics, or put your phone down on Saturday. You know, engage with your family. Have a Shabbat Friday evening meal, and put the phones away and have conversation. You know, so yeah.
Wouldn't we all like that? Oh.
Well, and it's possible.
So tell me, what's your thoughts about what's happening overseas? I mean,
where?
we can talk Lebanon. We can talk, you know.
Well, you know, there's
talk all of that.
I find it odd. You know, I can't. When we talk about politics, I get attacked from both sides. Mm-hmm. So I get attacked from my liberal friends because I support Israel. I get attacked from my conservative friends because I don't support perhaps the president's agenda. And, you know, so I get hit from both sides. I will say that for some reason, and you know, if the Arab neighbors of Israel would say, look, we want to live in peace, and lay down their arms, there would be peace in the valley. But, but, the only democratic nation in the Middle East has to fight for its life every single time, and it's awful. I mean, the Houthis, the Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, all have a stated mission to wipe the Jewish nation off the face of the earth.
Right.
And once they understand that's not going to happen, and why is that not going to happen? Because God's presence is with the state of Israel. Done. I mean, where are the Babylonians? Where are the Romans? Where are the Greeks? Gone from history. Where are the Nazis? Gone from history. Well, there's some around. But, I mean, where are all these people that were set out to annihilate the Jews? They're gone. And there's only one, as a religious man, there's only one reason that happens. It's not because they better bombs or better defenses, or, it's because God's hand is watching over the state of Israel. Full stop. So, I support Israel. I think Benjamin Netanyahu, who is, by the way, educated here in the United States, is a good leader. Some of his politics I may not agree with, but he has to do what he's doing to protect the people of Israel. I mean, every single day, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, in the span of 30 minutes, 155 rockets were fired from Lebanon into Israel. 155.
Yeah.
None of them did any major damage. How's that? And Israel's about the size of New Jersey. If 155 rockets were fired from Pennsylvania into New Jersey, look at the destruction. But
right.
It didn't happen. But there are people's lives being lost, and kids. It's awful. War is awful. But I guess from the comfort of our homes here in the United States, we can pontificate about that. But
yeah. So where do you see, for better words, I'll call it religious Christianity, Judaism, all of it? Where do you see that today as compared to 40 years ago when you started your quest here? I mean, what has changed? Maybe that's a better question.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as I've grown older, I've become more steeped in my faith. And I do more outreach than what I used to do. I don't know. I think that if there's been a change, it's been a movement toward more liberal Judaism, or liberal faith. I think. I know in my faith, there's no longer an Orthodox synagogue in Des Moines, and which is sad. But there's Chabad. But I don't know if it has changed that much. I think people's level of observance has changed.
Well, I go back, Michael. Let me throw this out. When I look back in history, the change that I see that has affected everything in my mind was, and I'm talking Albert Lea, Minnesota, where I grew up. Okay, farming community. Sure. Obviously, we had a hog slaughtering plant there. But anyway, growing up, as I look back, I see the change happen. See, growing up, if you didn't have everything done by noon on Saturday,
yeah.
You didn't do anything. Because from noon on Saturday, unless you were like us growing up on the farm, from noon on Saturday, nothing happened but family, friends, relatives. From
right.
noon until Monday morning. Well, then all of a sudden, things started staying open Saturday, more than just the bars, put it that way. Businesses. And what did that do? That took away from family. Then all of
Yep.
a sudden, you had that store open Sunday, and then another store open. And what did that do? Took away from family time, took the kids into the working. So all of a sudden, instead of sitting down at a table with your entire family, remembering the day when your son picked a pea up off the plate, threw it at his dad, and it stuck between his eyes, and you all laughed and said, that's not the right thing to do, but you engaged, you started
Yeah.
talking. And I see that was the downfall because it all became more focused on money. Money.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think there's some truth to that. And that's, I keep coming back to my faith that it's so important to truly observe the Sabbath day, and put the phone away, have a family dinner where you sit with the kids and you say, okay, what happened at school this week, and as much as the Jews have kept Shabbat, the Sabbath day, Shabbat has kept the Jews. And so that's one of the reasons I think that we see so many people of the Jewish faith excel, because they're rooted in today's world, but also rooted in
Right.
their faith.
Right.
And it's a good balance, in other words. But yeah, I'm with you. That's why Fairway stores are cool, because they're closed on Sunday.
Isn't that the neatest thing? And they still are today. It just blows my mind, but they're
Great.
strong, and they go, no, this is. And I wish more businesses were that way, because I think
Yep.
it would tend to push family togetherness back. I mean, I'm also saying that, if I was raising kids, looking at my daughter with her daughters, and now my granddaughters with kids, they're so involved in the kids' life as far as all the sports. I mean, back in the day, we had, what, 3 sports? Football,
Yeah.
basketball, and now all of a sudden we have uber sports, tons of them, male and female, which is, I think, great. But, oh yeah, reminiscing back growing up in the day when.
Yeah. Yeah, I often think about, I tell people, growing up in Detroit, I lived a Leave It to Beaver life.
Mhm.
My father, may he rest in peace, he worked at Ford Motor Company as an engineer, and my mother never had a job. We lived in a suburban village, if you will, and he would come home from work. Mom would bring out the martini,
Uh-huh.
and he would sit with the evening paper, and we knew not to disturb
Right.
Dad
Yeah.
for at least 45 minutes to an hour,
Oh yeah.
and then the family would sit down for a meal. I mean, it was a great life, and today these things
Right. Hmm.
control our life,
Yeah.
and it's just so fragmented.
Right.
My grandkids are, they're, like you say, soccer, basketball. I mean, yeah, it's just.
So
And where in the hell did soccer come from? Anyway, I still don't understand that game.
I don't.
I-
Is there any difference between soccer and golf?
Probably not.
Seriously, I mean, you're kicking a soccer ball, and you're swinging a club at a golf ball with the same intent as one is to get a high score, one's to get a low score. I mean, what's the difference?
What I sometimes I have great friends who are European, and they love to go to soccer games and I said to my friend, he's from Austria, I said, Michael, I said, why? You know why people riot in the stands at soccer games? No, why do they do that? Because somebody scored a goal. It goes on for hours and nobody does anything, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah. So anyway, I don't get it.
What do we do to get rid of the diversity in our government?
The what?
The, the split, the,
Oh,
the hatred, the hatred from our Congress and Senate that's trickled down, that's destroyed families, that have created.
yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. Again, I do business, and but I was just with Senator Slotkin from Michigan last Tuesday night, and she's about to become the senior senator for the state of Michigan, and we were talking about this split and how raucous it is between the parties. And I think, frankly, I think that has to do with who the leader is. I mean, we when Biden was president, I remember somebody stood up during a State of the Union speech and said, "You lie," and you know, it's just theatrics, and I think maybe that's the issue. Um, maybe you keep your base by acting like an idiot. Uh, and because you're feeding this segment of the population
right.
rather than all the people. And here in the state of Iowa, it's awful. I mean, people are leaving the state. Um, it, the legislature is hamstrung the cities. Cities are having to make decisions to do away with their police department. Um, it's awful.
Well, I don't know that it's any different. Minnesota is going through such a horrendous fraud problem.
Yeah,
right.
I heard that.
And it's amazing that a leader, I don't care what party you're from, a leader could allow such things to happen underneath their leadership. I mean, if it was business, Michael, that leader would be gone. Period.
Yeah.
And again, I go down. I don't care what party it is. We got to. I'm a firm believer in term limits. I mean, if you're there 35 years, there's something wrong.
There's something wrong.
End the story. If I look at Minnesota. If you can live on $42,000 a year, the stipend that they pay to be in the Senate House, why would you want that? I mean,
right.
You get so comfortable. I believe that term limits, obviously, I believe right now the whole country needs younger people involved to get involved, because they're the ones that are going to be around longer than these older folks. And there's I equated to a friend of mine, 33 years in the Senate, finally is leaving the Senate this year. But, I was highly chastised by the Republican Party because I endorsed a young lady running for that Senate seat who's on the DFL ticket. It's not because a party doesn't make any difference to me anymore. What makes a difference is somebody that has the integrity to stand there and hold on what they believe. Not call names, not point fingers, but to actually grab hold of a problem and say, is this a problem we need to address?
Offer solutions rather than fear.
Oh my God, yes.
And yeah, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah.
But
all right.
By the way,
yes,
as long as we're here,
yeah,
I have to make a public request. I'd like to have you on my.
Cost me money.
No.
Okay, then go ahead.
I'd like to have you on my show because I think one of the things you've been involved in politics, and I don't do politics as a rule, but you're also an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
You've got a lot of stuff going on, and have had a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And that's what we like to talk about. So, for example, today is Sunday, the 19th, I think, and so we're on Sunday through Friday On Sundays, we're on News Talk 1540 KXEL in Waterloo. It's a 50,000 watt blowtorch out there. And they give me an hour from noon to 1. Yeah, they give it to me. And so today we're doing the Business Week in Review. Last week's what happened big time last week.
Sure.
And then 2 interviews. One is with my bride.
Oh.
She's a camping fanatic. In 2024, over 81 million people went camping in the United States. And they contributed $70 billion to the national economy. So that's a business story, right?
Wow.
So we talked about camping and all that. And then I've got a woman from Taro International. Her name is Ro Crosby, founder, president, CEO there, talking about the experience myth. And I think this is really interesting because do you need experience to do something, or can somebody with drive and be taught to do something?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's what we're doing today.
So when you're doing the radio stick, are they on the web as well?
Yep. Hello Google, hello Alexa, hello, and they stream from the station. And then if you miss it, you can catch it in podcast form on the station.
Oh, wow.
I think it's what's curious is podcasting in general. I mean, think about this. I've been doing it for 15, 16 years now, and every day. And what's stunning is the amount of radio stations that said, oh, podcasting, it's a fad, it's not going to go anywhere. And now even radio stations are podcasting.
Exactly.
So, and I think that the cool thing about podcasts is the fact that you can listen anywhere on your time.
Exactly.
When you and I were doing broadcast radio, if you wanted to hear whoever on the air, you had to be listening between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But now,
anytime. Yep.
Anytime, yeah.
Well, sounds good. I appreciate you taking time on this Sunday before you do your stick.
Well, the shtick is already sent.
Oh, you already got that done. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh. The joys of being able to do it early and sit back and beat up.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how this happens. And cat's out of the bag on this.
All right.
2 new interviews were done. And I did those interviews some time ago. But I bank them,
Sure.
for the show.
Yep.
And so those were done. And then I record an intro to the show. This is what you're going to hear in the next 60 minutes. And then I go back to my show on Friday, because again, it's Inside on Business, the Week in Review.
Right.
Easy.
Sure.
So I go back to Friday's show. I pull out the stories from Friday or Thursday and just dump that into the recording. So that's the first news slug. And then I do 2 interviews in the markets. And the markets come from Friday too, because the markets aren't open on Saturday and
Sure.
Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes me, for my Sunday show, it takes me maybe an hour, to do that.
Cool.
Right.
All right, Michael. It's been great talking to you here on Headlines and Headaches. We're going to do this again down the road.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Absolutely. So, wow. Anything else you'd like to tell the folks that are out there right now before I let you go?
I will. I got to tell a story on you.
Oh boy.
One of my favorite Mike Perry stories, ladies and gentlemen. Mike calls me one day, says, "Hey, I'm sponsoring a cruise to the Bahamas, and I'd like somebody to go with me. Would you guys be interested in going? No charge. You just come along and you can kind of shepherd, some of the people helped me kind of keep things in line. And I said, well, sure, why not? Who wouldn't want to go with Mike Perry and his family on a Caribbean cruise? So we went. And I now know, I knew why Mike wanted me to go when we landed back in Minneapolis on the return flight. Because Mike looked at us and said, ah, man, I'm hungry. That meal of smoked salmon that we had, that's long gone. I'm really hungry. And I looked at him and I said, Mike, that was the first night that we were on the ship. And Mike said, oh, I don't remember eating anything else.
Oh, it was a good trip. It was definitely.
Well, and there's a lot more to that.
Well, we can do a couple of shows on our travels and escapades. All right, we got to go. Michael, it's great seeing you once again, and we'll do this down the road. You've been listening to Headlines and Headaches with my good friend Michael Libbie. Hey, what's that show that you do again?
Inside on Business, the News Hour.
All right, we'll check that out as well. Larry Johnson will be with us next time when he's done with his citizen help with the Lions.
Pancake breakfast.
Oh, yeah, probably breakfast or something. Headlines and Headaches. Until we meet again, remember, be the one.